Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. And yes, today, if you look at your map, we are looking at Parris Island. This is a Marine Corps recruit depot. There are two Marine Corps recruit depots. There's one here at Parris Island, and there is another one on the West Coast in California. So essentially, if you are a Marine and you are west of the Mississippi River, you will go to the West Coast Marine Recruit Depot. If you are a recruit east of the Mississippi, then you will go to Parris Island. Now, within the circles of the Marine Corps, at least when I was looking at joining the military, I ended up joining the U.S. Army. I was very interested in the Marine Corps, and a very, very close friend of mine was joining the Marine Corps as well. And unfortunately, I was looking for a very specified contract within combat arms, and the Marine Corps at the time was not able to do that. When you join the Marine Corps, you are essentially assigned a fairly broad category of roles, and then obviously whatever fits the needs of the Marine Corps is kind of where you go. At the time, the Army was, and the Army still does this, they offer very specified contracts. Now, that is why I made that decision. Now, however, I did have the opportunity to undertake an abbreviated Marine basic training program. I also attended an abbreviated basic training program many years ago in the 90s at Great Lakes, Illinois, with the Navy as well. But I can tell you, by and far, the Marine basic training program is the most robust and I would say intense of all the services, and I would say going back to the 90s is my optic on those events and those experiences. Now, obviously, things change. We know that the basic training requirements for all the services have gotten much lenient and are much easier to go through compared to the 90s. And yeah, at the same time, those who went through recruit training in the Marine Corps in the 60s and the 70s probably went through a completely different experience than those in the 90s. But some would say that basic training is getting a little bit too easy, that the inability to recruit persons into the armed forces and this modern generation, this Gen Z, this coddled generation, simply can't hack it. And unfortunately, that is the case in many circumstances. I can tell you the generation that exists now, these 20-year-olds are much weaker mentally than the generation coming up in the 90s, the 80s, the 70s. You can just see it. Now, what I want to do now is I want to go to a Marine Corps recruit advertisement for the Marines, and I believe this was either in the early 90s, late 80s, but could they even make this advertisement today? Would they even do it? Let's watch real quick. Here we go.
Once there were a few proud men of adventure, men of courage. still are. The few, the proud, the Marines.
All right, well, there you have it. So does anybody remember this this video? I mean, I certainly do. And I can tell you that at the time of seeing that, that had me very much interested in the U.S. Marine Corps. Now, fast forward where we're at today, in 2024. In my opinion, going into the 2020s, the Marine Corps was the last bastion of the warrior ethos in the U.S. military. Now, unfortunately, as we speak, that could in fact be going away. Do you guys remember the movie G.I. Jane? G.I. Jane. It was a movie about the political apparatchiks in the United States, senators, congresspersons, demanding that a female become a Navy SEAL. Now, this is real. This is real. We have seen it in the Special Operations Command of the U.S. military, the U.S. Army, the U.S. Air Force, and I believe the Marines have finally broken down and are placing females in some of these Tier 1 combat units, or they're trying to. The only military service as of yet that has not broken down and fully embraced diversity, equity, and inclusion, and bringing in unqualified females for these roles is the teams, the SEAL teams. To my knowledge, that has not been done yet, and I believe the Marine Raiders are also still very much holding out in terms of accepting women into these Tier 1 military combat units. Look, unless you have physically, mentally been in one of these units and you understand what they're about, at the same time you have these, these politicians in the U.S. pushing to have these females in these military units, and essentially just having weaker people being accepted into these military units, or rather incompetence in some cases being accepted into these military units. And by accepting some of these females into these units, they have compromised the integrity of the units. Oftentimes, obviously, sexuality raises its ugly head as you integrate females into these units. And it destroys the baseline camaraderie that exists in many of these units. And this experimentation continues. Just in terms of, let's say, my profession in the Army, I operated a main battle tank. So you have 4 positions within a main battle tank. You have the loader, who loads the main gun. You have the driver, who drives the main battle tank. You have the gunner, who operates the fire control system. And you have the tank commander, who kind of is the maestro and directs the tank to where it needs to go and communicates all functions and operations of the main battle tank. Now, here's where it has gotten tricky within the realm of armor. Let's say you have a 4-man crew. You have a very good gunner. You have a very good commander. You have a very good driver. And you need a loader. You need a loader. You need someone who is going to be able to heft these very large rounds, toss them into the breech at a high rate of speed, and continually do that under a high degree of pressure. Quite often, women can't do that. The loader position. So you have to take that female, and you have to stick her someplace. Now, could she go down into the driver's hole? Oftentimes, individuals in the driver's hole cannot be adverse to being in confined spaces. Being in the driver's hole of a main battle tank is much more confined than being in the turret. So that, in and of itself, eliminates some positions. So the only other position, in some cases, that the female could go would be the gunner's position. Now, normally you have to be an E4, E4P, or a corporal or a sergeant to be a gunner. And that's inherently where they're having problems with getting these women into these tanks. They're not very good loaders, and that's normally where you start off at. You either start off as a loader or a driver. And again, if you're a driver, you can't be resistive to confined spaces. You just can't. And I've met individuals that have onboarded into tanks, and they just can't hack the driver's hole. So they end up being loaders. Now, when I was in, they were all males. So you could condition that male to become a little bit stronger, quicker, loading those larger 120 millimeter rounds into the breech. Females, it's a little bit of a different story. Not as strong, not as robust as a male. So that's just another case example. Now, the Marine Corps. Back to the Marine Corps and what they are doing. So remember the video, right? Now let's check this out. Look at what the Marines are doing. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's in the Marines. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Not based on your competencies. Not based on your skill sets. Not based on merit. This is based on your skin color, your gender, your pronouns. And we scroll through this, and we get down here to this area. Diversity Review Board. Develop a systematic recruiting strategy to invest in a diverse force. Study methods to align recruiter assignments with U.S. demographics. Validate ascension criteria and application process for disparate impact. Study increases to the pool of qualified officer program applicants. LOE 2, training and education. Standardize D&I instruction at all levels of PME along the career continuum. Develop unit level SMEs to advise commanders on diversity and inclusion. Integrate historical diversity into PME. Fund diversity, equity, structure, and courseware. D&I toolkit. LOE 3, talent management and development. Transparent board and selection process. Right, that's going to happen. Monitor demographic trends in performance evaluations. Track diverse pool of candidates for nominative positions. Evaluate outreach and programs initiatives. And then commandership. LOE 4. Commanders issue policy statements for D&I. Here's the big one. And this is under LOE number 4. Unconscious bias and diversity and inclusion education at the cornerstone. Let me say that again. Unconscious bias and diversity and inclusion education at the cornerstone. The warrior ethos is gone. This is the neo-Marxist progressive agenda to now destroy the United States Marine Corps. These people hate the United States. So much so, they want to destroy the military. They want to indoctrinate the last vestige of the warrior ethos in the U.S. military and annihilate it, obliterate it, destroy it. And that's what they're doing. Pay attention, folks. When you vote in the upcoming election, think about this. Because the cackling hyena, the cackling idiot who was not voted into office by any means wants this. He wants to destroy the United States Marine Corps, and they're doing it. Have a good day.